Hello dear students, good afternoon all of you. Thank you so much for joining back to this video. We are over here back again with a completely new subject. This video is all about English grammar, and today we are gonna cover the noun topic. Okay, so if you are someone who is really into learning English and be super fluent with understanding the concepts of English grammar as well, so this video is actually for you. Here in today's video you will understand how nouns are used in English and what are the different types of noun and how we can deal with noun when it comes to sentence formation. Alright, so we'll start with the session and I'll first of all introduce myself to you. My name is Ahmed Sheikh. I have done MSc in IT and I have done B.Ed also. I am a senior master teacher at sisyaclass, and at the same time I come with 12 plus years of experience in teaching and training. I'm born and brought up in Dubai, and here right in front of you I'm standing to teach you the concepts of noun. Alright, so let's see what are the plan for today's session. So no matter how many things that you know about noun, the thing is like this is an exhaustive list of all the nouns that we have. So nouns can be categorized using different criteria, and using these criteria we'll have different types of noun as well. So in this video we'll talk about all the different types of noun, and trust me, it will be very helpful for you. Why? Because you will be able to not only understand the noun, but we'll also have exercises in between. Now these exercises will give you a complete and very clear idea that how nouns are actually used and how to identify what kind of noun are we talking about. Okay, a sentence can have more than one noun, and we'll also see that how we can identify the different types of noun in our sentence, in a given sentence. Okay, fine. So this is everything that we are going to cover. We're going to talk about proper noun, common noun, concrete noun, abstract noun, singular noun, plural noun, collective noun, compound noun, countable noun, and uncountable noun. All right, so there are pretty much different types of nouns that we have. However, the name itself is usually self-explanatory, and we can just by reading it understand that what kind of words will these type of noun will. I'll talk about all of these things in really very great detail, and this will help you understand a very clear understanding about what nouns is. Okay, fine. So in English grammar, whenever we form any sentence, there are total of 8 part of speech. Out of those 8 part of speech, one part of speech that we are going to talk about is noun. Okay, so keep this in mind that noun is nothing but it is one of the 8 part of speech. I believe this is clear. Okay, fine. Moving ahead. Now the question is, what is a noun? Okay, this is the question that we have. What is a noun? So let's try to read the definition. A noun is a word that names something such as a. Okay, now it is a word which names something. Okay, now what can it name? It can name either a person or a place or a thing or an idea. Okay, so any word that you're using to name a certain thing, idea, or name, person, then that word will become the noun. For example, I say that YouTube is a fascinating platform. So YouTube becomes a name. You are naming that platform with something. Alright, the same thing if I say Ahmed sir is very good in teaching. So Ahmed is my name. It's the name of a person, right? So these kind of words are actually nouns. Okay, so it can be a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Now when we talk about noun in a sentence, okay, that noun can either be a subject or an object. Okay, now what is subject or object? Very easy. Now subject and object actually establishes the relationship between the noun as well as the verb. Okay, so let's say that if I'm saying Virat plays amazing cricket, right? So let's say that if we have this sentence. Okay, now let's try to identify the nouns over here. The noun that we have is Virat, the name of a person, cricket, the name of a sport, right? Now you'll see that you will ask yourself this question, that which part of this sentence is doing the action and on which the action is being done. Okay, now the two things that we have is Virat and cricket. The action that we have is plays. Now, who is playing? So, who is doing the action? The action is done by Virat, and therefore this becomes the subject. In a nutshell, what we understand is that in a sentence, the noun which actually does the action will be considered as the subject, and on which the action is done will be considered as the object. And therefore in this sentence, Virat is the subject and cricket is the object. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, so that's what the sentence says, that in a sentence a noun can be either a subject or it can be an object also. Okay, apart from that, we have other types of words also which can replace a noun, and these words are actually called as pronoun. For example, I say Virat plays amazing cricket, and then I say Virat has a great fan base, right? Now we have two sentences over here. This is sentence 1 and this is sentence number 2, right? Now in these two sentences, okay, if you see, the word Virat is repeated again. However, what we can do is we can replace this word Virat with the word he, and still we know that we are talking about Virat only, right? Isn't it? And therefore he becomes what? He becomes the pronoun, which is another part of speech, and we will cover about pronouns in another video like this. Okay, today we'll be focusing on only nouns. Fine. So the word which can be replaced by noun are called as pronoun. Okay, however, we are not going to focus on that today. Okay, so basically what we understood is that the nouns are the words which we use to name certain stuff. Now nouns can either be subject, which is the action doer, and then nouns can also be an object on which the action is actually done. Okay, I believe this is clear to all of you. Now we have some questions just to see if you have understood the things properly or not. Okay, now which one from the following is not a noun? Okay, so we have fish. It's a name of an animal, isn't it? Right. Then we have laptop. It is actually a thing, right? Then India, it is actually a place. Then we have fight, which is not actually a noun. It's not the name of anything, right? And therefore what we will say is fight is actually a verb. It's not a noun at all, isn't it? Right? So over here the question is saying that which one of the following is not a noun. So this is a noun, this is a noun, this is a noun, but fight is not a noun. It is actually a verb, isn't it? And therefore D becomes your answer. However, let's twist or make this option a little bit different. So I will say fight movies. So if I say fight movies, then this is not anymore verb, then it will be a genre. A genre basically means what kind of movies or series you would like to see, right? So fight movies, so fight is the genre and genre is a name of a category, isn't it? Then that will become a noun. So it also depends upon that what we have written ahead of it, right? But if we talk about fight alone, then that will be a verb, and therefore what we will say is that this is a verb and verb is not a noun, and therefore option D is the answer over here. So option D is the answer. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, drop me comments in the chat section if you have any questions. Okay, I'll make sure that all of your questions are solved. Okay, moving ahead. Now next question, what does the noun Alex refers to? Alex, is it a name or a place or an animal or a thing? Well, it's very simple, right? Alex is usually the name of a person, and therefore we'll say that it's a name. Very simple to understand, easy to understand, straightforward question. Okay, moving ahead to the next question. Now here we're going to talk about different types of nouns that we have. Okay, and usually nouns are categorized into different categories based on different criterias. Okay, for example, here we have proper noun and common noun. Now this criteria is based on specificity. Now what do you mean by specificity? Specificity means that how much specific is that word, Okay, if it is specific to very specific to one specific thing, then that will be considered as a proper noun. However, if it's not very specific, then that will be considered as a common noun. Let's see the definition of it. Okay, so if you talk about proper noun, it says it refers to a specific person. Okay, it will refer to a specific person, a thing, place, idea. These words should be capitalized. This is something which is really very important. All the proper noun are expected to be capitalized. That's how proper nouns are identified. Okay, for example, we have Olivia. Olivia is a name of a person. Then we have Barcelona. Barcelona again is a name of a place. And if you see over here, the first letter is always capitalized. That's how proper nouns are actually identified. Even if these words are in the start or in middle of a sentence, still will always have these words capitalized. For example, I'll say Ahmed is teaching grammar. So any which ways, because Ahmed comes in the first or the start of the sentence, by default we'll be using the capital letter. Okay, or else I will say grammar is taught by, again now see, grammar is taught by, I should have written a small Ahmed, right? However, because this is a proper noun, I'll write capital A no matter where you're positioning this word in the sentence, right? So always keep this in mind that when you're writing a proper noun, it should always be capitalized. That's how a proper noun is identified. Okay, so here the things are very specific. When you talk about common nouns, the idea or the thing or the person is not very specified. So let's say over here it says common noun are words that refer to undefined or generic people, places or thing. For example, house. But what house? There is no specificity given, right? Then we have country. So country is mentioned, but which country in specific, it's not mentioned. Any which ways, country is still a noun. Okay, then we have child. Who child? We don't know. So let's say if we say Jacob, your child Jacob, then child becomes the common noun and Jacob becomes the proper noun. Okay, here we don't need to capitalize each and every word. Okay, so that's how the difference between the proper noun and common noun actually is. Okay, now this categorization was based on specificity, that how much specific are you when you're talking about certain stuff. Okay, we'll have some questions now. We'll see if you have understood these things clearly or not. Okay, so quiz number 3, which of the following is a proper noun? So we have city, we have mountain, we have Everest, and then we have river. Okay, so now if I see these words, I need to ask myself this question, that do we have any specific information or not? Okay, now what is specific information? So when I say city, right, do we know which city am I talking about? Now this city can be Mumbai, right? It can be New York, it can be Boston, it can be Manchester, right? Any of these cities can be there, right? We don't know about that, isn't it? Right? When you talk about Mumbai, sorry, when you talk about mountain, so when we say mountain, we have K2, we have we can talk about Everest, right? We can talk about Mahabaleshwar, and there are tons of different mountains. Here Everest, there is only one Everest, Mount Everest in the world. So here we are talking about very specific stuff. Okay, then river. Which river can we talk about? It can be Nile river, it can be Godavari river, right? It can be Krishna river. These rivers are from India, right? These are all the different thing. So when you talk about option A, the city is not specific, it can be any of the cities, right? When we talk about option B, that is also not specific. We can talk about any of these mountains. When you talk about option D, river is also not specific. It can be any of these things. But when you talk about Everest, there is no other thing that we are talking about. It's very specific, and we know that Mount Everest is only one in this world, right? And therefore, here we are very specific to one thing, and therefore this becomes our correct answer, option C. Option C is our correct answer. Why? Because we are talking about a very specific mountain and we are not talking in general terms. Okay, so that's the correct answer for us if we see that way, right? So Mount Everest is the correct answer. Okay, moving ahead to the next question. Identify the common noun in the sentence. Okay, we have a sentence given. Now we are supposed to find out the common noun from it. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll skip this option part, okay, and we'll just see the sentence, okay, and we'll try to identify all the nouns over here. So we say Rohit went to the park to play cricket. So Rohit is one noun because it's a name of a person. Went to the park, park is another noun because it's a name of a place, and then to play cricket, cricket is another noun because it's the name of a sport. Okay, so if you see, I have identified three nouns in my sentence. Okay, now the question is saying that we want to have a common noun. Now we have three words over here: Rohit, park, and cricket. So I'll just write Rohit, park, and cricket. Okay, let's try to identify which one of these three are a common noun. Okay, now if we talk about Rohit, Rohit is a very specific name of a specific person, isn't it? Therefore this will not be a common noun. Then we have park, but we don't have any other information about this park, that which park is this, whether it is big park, small park, or whether it is free park or paid park, or whether the name of this park is given like Ambedkar Park or anything else, right? And therefore what we'll say is there is no specific values or information given about this park, and therefore this can be a common noun. Okay, now cricket, when you talk about cricket, cricket is actually a very specific name of a specific sport, isn't it? And therefore again this will not become a common noun. So the correct answer that we have is actually park. Okay, so that's how we actually solve these kind of questions. Moving ahead, so yeah, option number B is the correct answer. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, moving ahead to the next question. Okay, now the next topic that we have over here is concrete nouns and then abstract noun. Now here the categorization is based on perception, or how do you perceive these nouns. Okay, the perception. Now we get a perception by our five sense organs. Now what are these five sense organs? That is vision by our eyes, then we have smell by our nose, we have taste by our tongue, and then we have the sensation of touch by our skin, and then sensation of hearing by our ears. Okay, so any noun that can be sensed by any of the five sensory organ will be considered as the concrete nouns. However, the nouns which cannot be sensed by any of our five sensory organ will be considered as abstract nouns. Okay, that's how simple it is. So when you are given this question to identify a given word as abstract noun or concrete noun, you ask yourself this thing, that can you perceive these noun with your five sensory organ or not? If you can, then concrete. If you cannot, then it's a abstract noun. Let's talk about the definition. Okay, a concrete noun is something that can be perceived through five senses. Okay, any of the five senses. If you can see, hear, touch, taste, or smell something, then the word that we have used is actually concrete noun. For example, apple, right? Apple can be seen, apple can be tasted also. So two sensory organs are being used over here, right? Then we have table. Table can be seen and table can be touched. So again, we have two sensory organs which are responsible over here, right? Now talking about abstract noun, these are intangible. Okay, now what does intangible means? Intangible means it has no physical form. It has no physical form. Okay, these are ideas, expressions, emotions which don't have actual physical forms. These kind of naming words are actually called as abstract nouns. Okay, now abstract nouns are intangible ideas that can't be perceived with the five senses, such as social concepts, political theories, and character traits. For example, love and freedom. Love and freedom, these two things don't have a physical form, but it's the name of an emotion, it's name of a thought, right? And therefore, these naming word will become the abstract noun. Okay, so once again, in a nutshell, I would say that based on perception, we have two different types of nouns. One is the concrete noun, which can be sensed by any of our five sense organs, and then abstract noun if we cannot perceive them with our any of the five sensory organs. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, so we'll have some questions now. So which of the following is an abstract noun? Abstract noun, again, you'll need to ask this question to yourself, that can you perceive these words by any of your five sensory organs? Okay, so let's see. Table we can see and we can touch, so this is not an abstract noun. Honesty you cannot see, honesty you cannot smell, honesty you cannot taste, honesty you cannot hear, honesty you cannot touch, and therefore this becomes one possible answer. Okay, then tree you can see, you can touch, and some part of the tree can be eaten also, so therefore we can say that we can taste it also, right? So again, tree is not an example. Then phone also has a physical form, and therefore we will say that this is also not. So honesty is the only option left which is actually an abstract noun. I hope so this is clear to all of you, right? So yes, the correct option is honesty. Okay, by the way, honesty is actually pronounced as honesty, not honesty. Okay, so H over here will be silent. Okay, moving ahead. Question number 6. Identify the concrete noun in the sentence. Now concrete noun, when I say concrete noun, it means that you should perceive that word with any of your five sensory organ. Okay, let's talk about that. Laughter is one. Then we have room is something that you can perceive from your sensory organ. Then we have filled is something which is an idea, right? There is nothing, filled is not actually what I can say, a noun itself, right? Filled is actually an adjective. Okay, then adjective as in because it will describe the noun. For example, if I say a filled jar, right? So we'll say a filled jar. So jar is the noun, but the word which is qualifying that noun will be actually considered as adjective. So filled itself is an adjective. Okay, then we have laughter is actually a form of verb, so not this one again, right? And then we have entire is again not not a form of verb, it is actually an adjective. Okay, therefore if you see, her laughter filled the entire room. Okay, so here we'll say room is the only noun that we have, and then here her is not actually a noun but it is a pronoun, which means that the only noun that we are left with is room, and therefore option B is the correct answer. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, moving ahead to the next question. Then we have singular nouns and plural nouns. Okay, now here the categorization is based on quantity. Okay, the categorization is based on quantity. So based on quantity, we have two types of nouns. Okay, singular nouns are those nouns which are only one. Okay, now this can be one place, one people, one person, one animal, one thing, anything which is one in count. Okay, now when we have anything which is more than one in count, then we'll use plural nouns. Okay, so plural will actually refer to many or more than one stuff, and then singular is actually only for one. Okay, let's talk about that. So for example, when you talk about singular noun, we have example a cat, a banana, usually these nouns are prefixed with a, which is actually signifying that this is only one. Okay, so that is the thing. Then we have plural noun. When you talk about plural noun, then we have car will become cars. So car is the singular and cars is the plural form of it. Okay, now this kind of plural noun can again further be divided into two categories. Now those two categories is, first one is regular plural noun and the second one is irregular plural nouns. Now what is the difference between these two? When you talk about regular plural noun, your singular word will be suffixed with some additional letters and then that will become your plural form. So if that is the case, then the noun that you have is regular plural noun. If you are just suffixing your existing word with some additional letters, then that will be considered as regular plural nouns. However, if you are modifying the singular form of noun completely and you have a complete different word for plural, then that will be considered as an irregular one. For example, man will become men. Here you are not adding any additional suffixes, but you are changing the word itself. When you are changing the word itself, it is a clear indication that it's an irregular plural noun. Okay, so based on the quantity, we have singular nouns and we have plural nouns. Singular nouns will be only one and then plural nouns will be of two categories. If the plural noun is suffixed with additional letters from the singular form, then that will be considered as regular plural noun, and then if you are completely modifying the word itself, then that will be considered as irregular plural nouns. Okay, so based on quantity, these two nouns we have. Okay, moving ahead, here are a few questions. Which of the following is the correct plural form of child? So child, when you talk about child, okay, do we add s in the end to have a plural form of it? No. Do we add es? No. Do we say children or do we say children's? Well, children's is also not correct. Children is the correct form. Now let me ask you one question and I want all of you to drop this answer in the chat section. Okay, tell me that is this children is an regular form or irregular form of plural noun? Okay, well, the answer will be that it is irregular. Why? Because here the word are completely being changed. So child becomes children, the word is modified completely. We are not just adding some suffixes, and therefore this will become an irregular noun, plural noun. Okay, moving ahead to the next. Now identify the singular noun in the sentences. Okay, let's try to find out all the nouns first. Okay, we have shelves. The shelves were filled with books and a single diary. Okay, so we have identified total of three nouns over here. Now let's try to understand that which one is plural and which one is singular. Shelves. So shelves, this VES, which gives the Z word, right? This itself is an indication that it's a plural form. Okay, and therefore I'll just write it over here that this is plural. The S in the books is signifying that this is also a plural form. So I'll say plural. Diary. What is the plural form of diary? That is diaries. Diaries, right? So because this is the plural form, it's very evident that this will become the singular form. And again, the word just before this is actually single. This again signifies that we are talking about only one diary, and therefore diary becomes your correct answer. So we'll see if we have any option. Shelves, no. Book, no. Filled, no. Diary, yes. Okay, so therefore option D will be the correct answer. Okay, moving ahead. Yes, option D is the correct answer. Now the next type of noun is categorized based on counting, whether you are able to count these nouns or not. Okay, now based on that we have countable nouns, we have countable nouns and then we have uncountable nouns. Okay, what are countable nouns? A noun that you can count. Very simple to understand. Nouns that you can count are called as countable nouns. Okay, for example, you can count my fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 fingers, right? You can count the number of person. So there is one person in the screen right now, me, isn't it? Right? You can also count the number of family members in your home, right? Again, everything that you can count in numbers are actually called as countable nouns. Okay, so for example, student, the number of students in your class, then book, the number of book in your bag or the number of books that you need to take to school, then pen, the number of pen collection that you have in your compass box, right? All of these can be counted. These things can be counted. Okay, then the next thing is the uncountable noun is a noun that cannot be counted. It cannot be counted. For example, salt. You cannot count the number of grains, the salt grains that you have. Rather, what you will do is you will quantify it. You will quantify its volume by saying 10 grams, 20 grams, but you're not counting how much pieces or how much grains of salt you want, right? And therefore that will become uncountable nouns, things that you cannot count. Again, sand, it can be measured, it can be quantified, but it cannot be counted. Okay, so there is difference between counting and quantifying it, right? Here you can measure its you can do the quantification of it, but you cannot count it. Then we have again water. Water can be quantified in liters, right? Sand can be quantified in grams or kilograms. Likewise, salt can be quantified in grams and kilogram also, right? Okay, also electricity. When you talk about electricity, we cannot count electricity. However, we can quantify it by watts, which is power, right? So this is how the uncountable noun is different from countable noun. Here we can count things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Countable, so uncountable noun we cannot count it. Okay, let's see some questions around it. Which of the following is an uncountable noun? Okay, can we count number of books? Yes, we can count. Can we count the number of chairs? Yes, we can count. Can we count the number of pens? Yes, we can count. Can we count the number of milk? That is very unrealistic, isn't it? Right? We cannot count milk, but we can quantify it in liters, and therefore this is our actual correct answer. This is the only uncountable noun in our question. Okay, so milk is the correct answer. Okay, moving ahead to the next question. Identify the countable noun in the sentence. Let's try to identify all the nouns over here. Okay, she bought 3 apples. So apple and a bottle of juice, bottle and then of juice. So we have identified a total of 3 nouns in these sentences. Okay, so apple, bottle and juice. What are we supposed to find is countable thing. Okay, now apple and bottle, these 2 things can be counted. The number of bottles can be counted and then the number of apples can be counted. However, juice cannot be counted because it can be quantified in liters and milliliters. Okay, therefore this is out of question. Now these 2 are correct answers. Okay, apple and bottle. So we have apples and we have bottle, right? These 2 are actually correct answer, and if you mark any of these 2 as correct answer, your answer will still be correct. So both or either of one will be corrected. In my case, I have selected apple, which is the correct answer. Okay, however, if you would have selected bottle also, that will also be fine because you can still count the number of bottles. Okay, so nouns which can be counted are called as countable noun, and nouns which cannot be counted are called as uncountable nouns. I believe this is clear to all of you, right? Okay, let's move ahead. Now we have some special types of noun that I want to talk about. For example, we have collective nouns. Okay, now collective noun is actually the name given to a collection of certain stuff. For example, when we have collection of fish together, we call this collection as school, and therefore we'll say, rather than saying a group of fish, we'll say a school of fish, right? Therefore, also if we talk about some cattle, like for example sheep, so a group of sheep is called as cattle, so we'll say a cattle of sheep, right? Therefore we can have more examples like a group of lions can collectively be called as pride. So we'll say a pride of lion, right? So here we say a collective noun is a noun that functions as a singular noun, and this is really very important. Okay, it is a singular noun, but it will refer to a group of stuff. Okay, while referring to a group of people or things, for example, a team is a singular word, though it has multiple people in it. However, a team collectively will be considered as a singular noun. Okay, then we have crowd. Crowd is actually comprised of many people, but still that collectively will be considered as a singular noun. Okay, then we have family, which is again made up by several family members. Still one family is considered as a singular noun. Okay, so collective nouns is actually used for naming the group of certain stuff or certain people. Okay, now let's have some questions around it. What is the correct collective noun for a group of fish? Okay, and as I've already mentioned, the correct name for a group of fish is actually a school. Okay, well, that's the correct answer. Moving ahead, identify the collective noun in the sentence. The audience cheered loudly after the performance. Okay, now we need to find out the collective noun in this case. The audience cheered loudly after the performance. So audience over here is a collection of several spectators who are watching the performance, isn't it? And therefore we'll say the audience is the collective noun in this case. I believe this is clear, right? Then the last type of noun and the special type of noun is actually called as compound noun. The compound noun are actually made up of two or three different words together, and these words combinedly will form a single word. Okay, example of this will be toothpaste. So the paste that we use for our tooth is called as toothpaste. Then we have the cream, which is iced, so ice cream, right? And the room that we have our bed in, so that is bedroom, right? So these are examples where you compound two words together to form a complete new word, right? So these kind of noun will be considered as compound nouns. Okay, now let's see a few questions. Which of the following is the compound noun? Happiness, I don't see any two words over here, so not at all. Careful, and then we have careful is actually not two words. Run is again not two words. But if you see, we have class and then we have room, two words. The first one is class, the second word is room. So yes, this will become a compound room, right? Even sometimes relations can also come with compound nouns. For example, if I say mother-in-law or father-in-law or simply in-law, I'm really sorry, right? Mother-in-law or in-law, simply saying, right? These are special compound nouns which are also called as hyphenated compound laws. Why hyphenated? Because when we write the separate words, we put a hyphen in it, right? And this hyphen will make this compound words or compound nouns as hyphenated compound words. Okay, the other one is just compound word. For example, the classroom, this is just a simple compound noun, that's it. Okay, classroom is the correct answer. Now the last question for today, identify the compound noun in the sentence. She visited the post office to send a letter. Okay, so over here if you see, post office and letter are the two nouns that we have. Okay, now you tell me, based on my the way that I've underlined the stuff, you tell me which one is compound noun over here. The only one noun which has two words is post office. So it's the name of a place, but it has two different words, and therefore option C, which is post office, will be the correct answer. Okay, I believe this is clear to you. Moving ahead. Well, that's everything that we had for today. I believe you have understood the essence of noun and how nouns are categorized in different categories, right? Make sure that you download our sisyaclass app from the App Store or Apple or Play Store for Android, so that you can get more such content and you can get access to more such science, physics, chemistry and English related classes. Okay, this QR code is over here. You can take a screenshot and then scan it off. Okay, well, to make sure that you are not missing on these kind of important videos, make sure that you are liking, sharing and subscribing to this channel, and also sharing this to your friends who might need this video. Thank you so much. We'll come back with another such video, and till then stay tuned. Bye bye, take care.